We will start again. My name is Dr. Blake Bennett, and this is the Kendo Coach live stream. This week we're talking about, thank you for letting me know, we're talking about making Kendo fun, and it's in particular for our young members, right? And so there's this idea with having fun in the dojo, which is a little bit problematic. And the first reason for that is that fun is quite a subjective thing. Okay, so what's fun for you and me isn't necessarily the same for other people, and it's not necessarily the same for our young members either. Okay, so that's the first problem that we come up against when we have this conversation about having fun in the dojo. And the second thing that is a little bit problematic when we have this conversation is like, when we have fun in the dojo, it kind of implies that we're goofing off a little bit. And the last place that we want to be goofing off is in the dojo, right? It's a pretty regimented sort of environment. So we have these two tensions when we're talking about having fun, and how do we deal with that as a coach. So what I've done is I've prepared a wee bit of a presentation for you guys for us to have a look at. And now this is based pretty much solely on some research that has been really informative for my work, but also the work of quite a few others in the same boat as us. And when I say that, what I mean is that we aren't the only sport or activity or art that really struggles with this idea of having fun or providing a fun environment for our young people to enjoy and to keep coming back to our clubs. And so this research was conducted by Professor Amanda Visek and her colleagues. And I think it's really going to be quite helpful for us in the context of Kendo to help us move forward and create these fun environments. We want people to keep coming back, particularly our young members, right? And one of the comments in the Facebook page when I put this topic up was, yeah, man, I'd love to know how I can hook my young people into coming back and enjoying trainings. So I brought this research to you guys today, and we'll go through it one by one, and we'll stop for some question and answers as we go. If you do have questions for me, I really want to hear your questions. Please chuck a Q in front of your questions if you have any, so I'm able to find them a little bit easier when we get to that point. All right, so let's start off. Group dynamics and support. Now, this is about what young people want from their sporting experience. Okay, so this study that was done by Visek and colleagues looked at what the environment needed to be like for young people to enjoy themselves. Okay, we'll talk a little bit later about the games and things. I'm sure some of you guys are here looking for some games to take away and put into action tonight, and that's absolutely fine. We will cover that. But before we get on to that practical stuff, what are the things that we can do in our dojo to create this environment that is enjoyable? And the first thing that they found in the research was this idea of group dynamics and support. And essentially what this means is that young people really like to feel part of something bigger than themselves. In fact, we all do, right? But it's particularly important to make this an enjoyable environment for us or for our young people when they're coming along. And so the group dynamics and the support essentially tells us that when we are running a training or when we're putting people through their paces, no matter what level they're at, we really need to be encouraging them. Okay, and so this comes down to, for example, having the whole group yelling support of each other for each other when there's a little bit of, let's say, kakari geiko going on. I remember we used to do this quite a lot. It was a really important part of what we would try and do in our dojo, and that's yell "Faito" and "Gambare" and "You can do it," and really try and create this environment where the group would support the individuals on the floor as they were going through their paces. Okay, so those little things that we can do, it really makes a huge difference to the vibe, to the feeling, to the culture of the club, and therefore provides the level of support or the feeling of support that our young people want, right? And therefore leads to their enjoyment of being part of that experience. And I think it's fair to say, if you really stop and think for a minute, Kendo is actually quite a scary thing. So we're talking about what it's like for young people you've got this this bogu on that kind of makes you look like a little bit of a monster, a Darth Vader type figure. There's a lot of yelling, there's a lot of hitting, there's a lot of big bodies and sweat and all this sort of stuff. It's not a particularly fun or enjoyable thing for some people. And so when we have a lack of group support, we can really start to impact that enjoyment. And the problem with that, of course, as we know, is that leads on to people being less inclined to want to come back to the dojo next week, particularly on a cold Wednesday night or something like that. So again, this idea of group dynamics, this is something that we can really start to build in quite easily if we ask our members, our seniors, and everybody else involved to really start to build up support for people who are going through their paces. Or even just before and after training. Hey, well done, Blake. You did a great job, mate. Well done. Awesome stuff. And that sort of idea, that support that we can generate for each other, for our young members, is just so important. And in the research, this came up as the number one thing that young people enjoy about their involvement in sport. Okay, so to take that away, it makes quite a significant difference. All right. So let's talk about the second one, trying hard. Again, this came in at number 2, the second most important thing that young people enjoy when they're being involved in a sport, and what makes them want to keep continuing on with that sport. Now, obviously, kendo is the type of environment that is absolutely primed for trying hard and really digging in and showing your mettle, what you're made of, right? And in actual fact, I was having a little think about this as I was preparing this presentation today, and I think there's a bit of a conversation that we need to have around what it means for us this day and age, in particular, modern day sort of kendo coaching requirements, when we are providing the opportunity for young people to push hard, to try hard, and experience the joy found in the effort that comes from that experience, right? And I think the best way that I found to explain this was, rather than pushing people hard, particularly again the young people, and rather than pushing them hard, I think what we want to be trying to do is helping them to explore their limits, right? Rather than pushing their limits, we want to help people explore their limits. Now, this is an idea I think that is worth ruminating on just a little bit in our role as coach, because regardless of what you and I went through, and what benefits we perceived that we got from hard training, being pushed past our limits, through our limits, past our limits, this day and age, I think it's fair to say that the young people that are coming into our dojo probably have just a little bit different of an assumption around what what sports should be about, or how far they're able to push themselves or be pushed and still feel comfortable, still feel that their well-being is intact and everything's safe, right? And the same goes, I think it's fair to say, for some parents as well, all right, particularly outside of Japan, where perhaps those cultural assumptions aren't shared abroad, right? And so what we want to be doing is setting ourselves up to give our young people the opportunities to try hard, right, and really experience the joy found in effort, but not push them too far where that becomes a little bit of a problematic idea, right? So we really want to try and help them explore it, I think, is a way to go around that. And just with that, one of the things I remember when I was a young boy training from the age of 8 or 9 all the way up to now, one of the things that used to be constantly yelled at me during a kakarigeko session was nana korobi yaoki, or fall down 7 times, get up 8 times, right? And this was a value that, once it was explained to me what that meant and how I could apply that in my kendo and beyond, right, in my school, and when I joined the workforce, and later on when I joined university, the opportunities, we know the opportunities to really explore our limits and push those boundaries and see what we're made of. Kendo really provides us with that opportunity. So we do have that responsibility when we're working with our young people, and we can be assured or reassured that they enjoy that too. Okay, but it does need to be couched in a way where we support you. You're doing such a great job, and it's really, really great, isn't it, when you find that new limit, something that you're able to do that you didn't previously think you could. But again, it's around us talking through those things with our young people and providing that support. They love to try hard, but we need to give them the support and reassure them that they're in a safe place as part of that whole experience. Positive coaching. Well, goodness me, what a surprise. This whole channel, in fact, is based around this idea of positive coaching, as I'm sure you well know by this stage. But this really is quite an important thing. Okay. And so when we're coaching older people, younger people, it really doesn't matter whether it's high performance down to grassroots. The role of the coach to create an environment that is supportive, positive, and something that can really build people up is critical to the enjoyment factor. All right. So I want to emphasize that idea of building people up. Oftentimes, I think we come to this, we have this kind of this assumption or culture, and certainly I've seen it many, many times, where the feedback is quite critical and quite negative, and perhaps the body language doesn't really provide that support that we're looking for. Okay, so what we're trying to do instead of pushing people down is build them up. And again, through the research, we know whether it's kendo or football or anything, young people are looking for those positive coaching experiences, because at the end of the day, they're looking at us as coaches and going, hey, coach, I need your vision, man. I really appreciate getting good feedback, and I like a pat on the back. It's really, really important to me. And so without being able to articulate that, our young members are certainly looking for it. And so when we go to the dojo looking for those opportunities to build people up, to give them that positive support reinforcement that they need, that makes them feel good, is one of those key factors in keeping people coming back for more. Okay, so again, these three things really tie in nice and neatly. We've got the support from our members and really building up that positive culture of support and the dynamics therein, right? And then within that culture, we're able to start helping people to push their limits or explore their limits, as I said before, and give them that opportunity to appreciate the joy found in effort. As a side note, this idea, this term, the joy found in effort, is actually underpinning tenet of the theory, or the philosophy of Olympism. Pierre de Coubertin, when he was building up what we now know as the modern day Olympics, really did emphasize how important it was to emphasize the joy that we can get from putting the hard yards into our practice and to our competition. Okay, so this is absolutely applicable to us in kendo as well. And if we can support our young people in understanding how enjoyable it is to try hard, they're looking for those opportunities, and we can provide those as well. And again, as long as we've got this positive coaching vibe that supports that, then all these things are coming together to make the dojo environment something or somewhere that people want to keep coming back to. All right, let me know if you guys have any questions about any of this stuff. As I said before, if you could please put a Q in front of your questions, so I know what I'm looking for. That would be great. We can carry on a little bit later in the stream. I'm going to talk to you guys about the resource, which is down in the description below. I went ahead and put some possible games that you could use together in an ebook. You can print it out, stash it in your bogu bag, or keep it on your phone, or whatever it is. But this should be able to be a really helpful resource for you guys when you're going to look to put the practical stuff in place, rather than this cultural stuff that we're talking about now. But we'll get to that in a minute. Again, if you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, Rituals and swag. I love this one. I love that this made it into the research because it certainly is something that I've found helpful in my coaching in the past. So it's really, really interesting for me to see that rituals and swag, and I'll explain what those things are in a little bit more detail. I'm really interested to see that this came to be part of the research, or a result of finding in the research in other sports as well. It just goes to show that young people are looking for these things no matter what the activity is that they're doing. So the rituals and swag in this context refer to, for example, rituals, as we can imagine, are those things that we do as a team or as a group before and after or during a competition or a training. Okay, so for instance, when we would go away to an event, win or lose, one of the rituals that we used to have was to sing Queen's "We Are the Champions" in the car on the way out of the car park, making sure, of course, that the windows were rolled up and no one could hear us. But that became part of what we did. Every time we went away, as I say, win or lose, we would sing "We Are the Champions" as we went out. And the young people in the car, they would start to expect that. That was part of what we did. That was part of the identity of being part of our club. All right. So those sorts of things that are regular occurrences, rituals that we put into place as regularly as we can, kids love that, right? It's part of the culture. They love that sort of stuff. Another thing that we used to do was a pre-shiai ritual where we would sort of shake hands in a particular way before going in and out of the shiaijo. Now, I know that one's probably a contentious issue, whether you bow to each other as you come out of the shiaijo or you do a fist bump as you come out of the shiaijo. That's up to you. That's your call and what's appropriate and applicable in your context. But for us, it was something that we did. When we would come out, we would bump fists with each other, and that was something that we did, right? And it was a very, very small thing. It was a very small thing, but it made a big difference to the culture, to the vibe, to this group dynamics that we've talked about, right? And so having those common rituals in place was really important for our young people, and it kept them coming back. They liked it. It was part of the thing that they identified with. Swag is a cool one because swag refers to the clothing or to the artifacts that help them identify with their team, with their club. All right. So again, this is going back a few years, and those of you who have been around in New Zealand kendo for a while, you probably remember this. Haven't done it for a while, but we used to wear all white kekogi and hakama when we would go away. That was our away strip, right? So when we were preparing to go away for a competition, there was a big sort of ceremony around getting our gear ready, making sure it was all clean and tidy because white stuff gets dirty really quickly, obviously. So making sure everything was packed up nice and neatly, and that we were going to be very clearly identifiable as the Canterbury Kendo Club. And that was something along the lines of swag that we could hang a lot of our culture on. Again, being part of the group, being part of something bigger than yourself and contributing to that was the sort of thing that we could really start to enhance the enjoyment of the experience. And there's other things that you guys can do as well. For instance, getting the young people in your club to have a hand in designing this year's club jacket. Maybe with a little bit of vetting from the adult members, that's up to you. But we've definitely done this in the past with great results as well, where the young people design where they want to have the logo, what do they want written down the side, all those sorts of things. It was a way in which to keep them involved. And when they would wear these things, they would know that they could take ownership over it. That was their thing. They came up with it, right? And so little things like that, again, being part of the group and identifying with the group, it becomes an enjoyable experience because it's not just you. It's not just a scary sort of training with lots of people, lots of big, scary adults, smelly, scary adults yelling and screaming. You've got some skin in the game. And that in the research is clearly showing us, not only in kendo, but all across the board, that is what young people want from their sporting experience. So it goes to show for us as kendo coaches, we can start to do this sort of thing as well, really easily, whether it be with your hakama kepi, your bogu, Another one that we do currently in the Canterbury Kendo Club is we use different thread color to embroider our names on the back, depending on what grade we are. All right, so little things like that can be tweaked and used, and you can start to build around, build up a bit of a culture of this is what we do, this is how we do this here, and you guys, young people, you guys can play a part in that, and that becomes really, really important for their experience. Okay, competition to a point. Competition to a point, right? So obviously competition is inherent in kendo, it's built in, right? Even just in jigeko, that's a competition. All right, but when we talk about competition in children or young people enjoying competition, all good, no problem. As much as we can give them those opportunities to test their skills against others, and other people at similar age or from other clubs or whatever it is. Competition can be really helpful and really healthy to a point, though. And what I want to do, just to sort of emphasize this idea, I'll bring this up. I want to show you guys this this framework that's come out of the Auckland University of Technology and another organization called Active Auckland. Basically, what they did was figure out that one of the bigger problems that we have with trying to convince young people that they should stay in sport and that sport has a lot of value for them, one of the things that we need to do is consider the continuum that is available to us. And what I mean by that is oftentimes when we talk about competition, what tends to happen is that we lean on the climate of performance, right? When we talk about competition with young people, it sort of starts this dialogue around winning and losing, okay? And only the best get selected, and the adults will have control over who does what and when. We have to perform, we have to do this many kakarigeko sets, and we have to do this kind of waza, and the earlier you start, the better, and so on and so forth, right? Now, when we get older, when we have older teenagers or more competitive young adults, that sort of thing is absolutely fine, okay? As long as people are buying into that or signing up for that particular type of experience, not a problem. But the research is showing us that it's important to look at this across a continuum. So what that means is the younger we have, the younger our members are, the younger members we have in our club, the more it is ideal for us to operate in this climate of development, right? And so this is around, again, the effort that can go into it and the improvement that can come from that. Everybody having a skin in the game, kids deciding perhaps, what color hakama kekogi they're going to wear this time, or whatever it might be. But the opportunity is that we don't stick to our climate of performance, but we look at it as a continuum and emphasize the learning that can come from competition, win or lose, right? And so I find this a really helpful and interesting framework to base a lot of my coaching decisions around. When I'm looking at the people that I'm working with, where do they need to be? What are their needs, right? Are they coming to me to learn how to be little Shiai machines? In which case, we have to tailor ourselves or tailor our trainings to this climate of performance. But it certainly doesn't lend itself to the younger ones who are really just there to hang out with their mates, or because mum and dad made them, or whatever the reason is they're coming in the door. But it's highly likely that those younger people are really needing to be located in the climate of development where we can support learning from the competition, right? So well done, Blake. You did a great job out there, mate. You didn't quite get the result you were looking for. What are the opportunities here? What are your work-ons? What did you do well, right? And so framing those things up a little bit differently for those younger people, and not focusing too heavily on the performance discourse too early. All right. So games. Now, before we dive into games, let's see if you guys have any questions. If you do have a question, go ahead and put a Q in front of your question so that I know how to find it. We've got one from Nicholas here. The kids and teens in our club sometimes go out together to watch anime and often invite them to our house to play computer games, hanging out together. I love that, Nicholas. That's exactly the sort of thing that we can do, that sort of, I guess, culture that we can promote in our clubs, right? Because again, our people are there because they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. Yeah, they want to get good at kendo, and there will be some other solid reasons. It might be around culture or heritage or fitness or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, we're all people, right? We're social creatures. And so having these connections, and I think if we were all to reflect back, regardless of whether you're a kid or an adult, if you think back, you know, why have you done kendo for so long? It's the people, right? It's the people that you like. Maybe the reason you left a club was because of the people. You didn't quite fit in, or you know, it was a negative environment. But again, it's around the same reasons that young people are looking to be part of a club and keep coming back. It's no different. So if we start to look for opportunities to build up these ideas, to build up these types of environmental things around support, trying hard, positive things that we can say and do as coaches, the rituals and the swag and the framing that we, or the wording we use around opportunities for competition, and we start to build these cultures that people want to be part of, particularly young people. Okay, right. So let us talk now about some of the games. If you guys have a little squiz down in the description of this video, hopefully you will see a link to the resource that I put together for this stream. Go ahead and have a look through that either now or in your own time. I am going to go through a couple of the wee games that tickle my fancy and sort of explain how they play out. But what I wanted to do just before we got there, I want to suggest to you guys that there are amazing opportunities in any type of, or any style of kendo, or any particular drill or activity that you're doing currently. There are opportunities to make a game or a fun activity out of what we're doing, right? And so I wanted to share with you how I do this personally, and see if this can sort of spark a little bit of inspiration for you. And now this does apply to the resource, right? It's linked, it's connected. So if we go through this, hopefully you'll be able to make a little bit more sense out of the resource that I've made for you. The first thing that we want to do is be clear on the learning objective. What is it that you want your students to get out of this particular activity? Okay, so remember, we're talking about how to make things fun. Now, my biggest gripe with kendo trainings here in New Zealand, anywhere I go, is the fact that we go kiri kaishi for a couple of sets, then we do menuchi 5 times, then we do kote 5 times, then we do do 5 times. It's the same thing. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Kihon is really, really important. I completely get it, right? But the fact is that there's opportunities for us to make these activities way more enjoyable for our young people, way, way more enjoyable. See, the first thing that we want to do is clarify what it is that the learning objective is. What is the point in doing this particular thing? What is the point in doing 5 menuchi, for example? Right? We say it's kihon, but what specifically? When are we going to use this, right? And so once we're clear on this learning objective, we can pick a scenario either from Jigeko or from Shiai or from grading, whatever the focus is. We can pick a scenario and link the learning objective with that scenario. Okay, with that realistic moment in the kendo exchange. Now that we've got the learning objective and a scenario side by side, we can start to make modifications, and I'll explain what strep means in just a minute. We can start to make modifications that will turn out to be an activity, something that's not just menuchi 5 times, koteuchi 5 times, etc. Right? We can start to really be innovative with the sort of things that we're doing on the dojo floor. Okay, so as I say, the resource that I've got for you guys down below it's got a lot of different games. Okay, but I'm saying that if we really sort of look at this type of model and consider how we can link our learning objectives with a particular scenario, make tiny little modifications according to this model, we can make a game out of anything, right? And this is the sort of thing that I really want to emphasize, because it doesn't take much to come up with a really enjoyable, fun activity for our young people, but for everybody for that matter. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about what these modifications are. The first thing that we're going to do is talk about space. Okay, so when we talk about making modifications around the space, we're talking about the size of the training area, or the area that people are allowed to move around in. Okay, so you can make that bigger or smaller to emphasize or de-emphasize the learning objective as required. Let me give you an example, because that sounds a little bit complicated. One of my go-tos is the scenario when you get locked in the corner of the shiaijo. Okay, I think we've probably all been there. I spoke about it a little bit at my last live stream. When we get boxed in and we've got our back to the white line. Okay, so in a shiai, we're fighting our opponent, and all of a sudden we're right up hard against the line. They've got the control because they're in the middle of the ring, and we're standing with our almost this close to a hansoku, right? So what tends to happen in that scenario, as we know, is that the focus goes to the stepping out thing, okay, which means that the attacker can very easily put pressure on, because we're not focused on what they're doing, we're focused on the environment, not our opponent. And ippons can be won and lost pretty easily in those sorts of situations. So that's the scenario, right? We're up against the line. Now, what we can do with that is create these activities where in pairs, we have one person with their back against the line and one person controlling the ring. And we can move them all around the dojo. So this is your little corner. That's your little corner over there. That's your little corner. That's your little corner. So everybody's all over the place with their own little corner where they're practicing this little scenario. Okay, so we've modified the space. We're not in straight lines facing off against each other like you tend to see. We're using the space in different ways. Okay, we can make the space bigger to take the pressure off, so that the person trying to get out of the corner has a little bit more scope. Or we can make it smaller and say we're not allowed to move out of this little box here. All right, so they really have to try and use other techniques to get out. Maybe they have to come do a men and then quickly pivot around with the hirakiashi so that they can get out, or whatever solution they come up with. All right, so there's lots of different ways that we can skin this cat, but the idea is that we alter or modify the space according to what the learning objective is and what the scenario is. Same idea with time, right? With time, we can start to add time or subtract time to either put pressure on or take pressure off. So a good example for time might be when we're working with young people, or any of our members for that matter, on how to do kakari geiko, right? And if we put time restraints on, we can emphasize different things like speed, for example. So let's say you might start your kakari geiko training with man run through, kote man, this sort of thing. Okay, and so the time pressure that people have is not there, and that's totally fine. Okay, but when we want to start to build up their capacity for speed, for example, we can say you have exactly 10 seconds to strike 5 menuchi as quickly as you can, or 5 ippon as quickly as you can. So rather now than going man run through, kote run through, they have a little bit of a time pressure to go man, kote, do, and they're trying to move around and strike as quickly as possible, right? Because we've shortened the time. And here we've got a modification with space as well. We can say, right, you have to strike this many attacks or this many ippon in this amount of time, and you're only allowed to use this space, this half moon space. So we're getting them to work on keeping their focus on the person rather than running through and losing focus, or whatever the learning objective is that you're looking looking to emphasize with this scenario. I hope this is making sense to you guys. The next one we have is rules. Now, rules is really where we can do all sorts of stuff, where we can emphasize something in a shiai, for example. One of the things I was thinking about for this one, you could look at your members and go, you know what, we aren't striking nearly enough nidan waza. All right, in the event over the weekend or just watching jigeko this week, people are just doing one strikes, they're one trick ponies. We want to have some nidan waza and some harai waza making opportunities, right? And so with rules as a modification, you can start to think about how you can emphasize a particular type of waza. So what I mean by that is you could say in this session, in this jigeko, you are only going to be awarded, or in this shiai, shall we say, you're only going to be awarded ippon if it is a nidan waza. Okay, so the reward is an ippon for executing and emphasizing that type of waza. Okay, if they strike and get an ippon with one, maybe you give them half a point or something like that. But this is a way that we can modify, just tweak little rules so that we can emphasize a particular point. Again, using the scenario of a shiai or anything really, we make that clear to our people. We've got our clear learning objective, which is more nidan waza in this case, and we put a rule on it that you must, or you can only score ippon or be awarded ippon if it was a nidan waza or whatever it is that you want to work on. Okay, and oftentimes, if you run out of ideas with rules, or any of these modifications for that matter, but in particular for rules, ask your students. I do this all the time in my class at university. If I'm running a session, I think, this isn't working, or we might need to add in or subtract something. I ask the students, and it's amazing because they will always have something to add to or subtract. If they're clear on what the learning objective is, because you've made that clear, then they will come up with something. You'll always be surprised with that. Okay, equipment. Now, equipment. This one, I love this one. I love doing this one because it really does open up a whole lot of new ideas, some really creative and innovative ideas. The first thing that I tend to do when I modify equipment is I get hold of some chambara shinai. And some of you might roll your eyes at that, and that's okay. Again, we were talking earlier in the stream about, does this appear to be goofing off, right? And so again, like I was trying to say, if we're clear on our learning objectives and we can be really articulate around what is the scenario that we're trying to improve here, or what is the learning objective that we're trying to hone in on, it really doesn't matter what the equipment is that you use, because you are being purposeful in your decisions to make fun activities for people of all ages, for that matter, right? Chambara shinai, if you can get hold of them, they are a little bit pricey. They can be used for adult beginners, children beginners, anyone without bogu, to actually experience what it's like to have about a kendo engagement. And this is important, as I'm sure we would all agree, to see what the relevance is of the waza and of the kihon that we've been practicing over and over again. Oh, this is why coach is making me do this nuki do thing, right? So they can put these things into practice. And using chambara shinai is a safe way to do that, right? So it becomes a really effective training tool in a safe way. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be centered to shinai, right? You can use equipment like I think most of us know the one where we put balloons on the men, and the attacker has to try and pop that balloon. That's a modification of equipment. We don't normally use that in kendo, but it's a way to introduce something else, some sort of new equipment to emphasize a particular point. Another one that I've done with balloons is the old ball and chain, as they say. Means different things to different people, I'm sure. Where you tie a balloon to a long piece of string and you move around an okuriashi, and the other person or other people try and fumikomi and stamp that, stamp the balloon. So again, just a novel way to try and use other equipment, different equipment, to emphasize a particular point. Pro tip though, the ball and chain thing, it's a lot of cleanup. So as long as you got time to clean up, that's I highly recommend it. And then people, right? We can modify the amount of people that are engaged in our activities. I saw a great video from Ariga Sensei on Facebook the other day that did just this, right? He had, I think, I don't know, 8 or 10 kids fighting him in the middle, and they were all trying to get ippon on him, and they didn't do terribly well, but it looked like a hell of a lot of fun anyway. And this is exactly what he's doing. Is he's modifying the amount of people engaged in the activity in order to increase the novel factor, right? It was an interesting and fun and enjoyable way to go about the training. And we can do this. We can have 2 people against 1 if it's safe and if the ability and the needs allow for it. We can work in groups of 3 rather than just in pairs, so we can constantly have a shimpan there. Again, that's a great way to emphasize particular learning objectives around ippon and things like that. Lots and lots of different ways to try and modify the number of people we usually have involved in a kendo situation. Okay, so those are the main things that we can do to modify activities. Again, if we're clear on the learning objective, we can bring in a scenario, hone in on it, and then modify the space, the time, the rules, equipment, and the people. Not all of them if we don't want to, if we can't think, just 1 or 2 of those things, even just 1 of those things, in order to really hone in and make things new, novel, creative, and therefore enjoyable. Right, let me see what you guys are asking. We've got one from Chris. Hey, Chris. It's quite cool when we play games in the dojo, especially seeing some of the older members join in. The older members always have more fun, I think. That's probably true, man, as long as their joints hold out. I totally agree. Line tag. We do line tag at the start if the dojo has lines. This is a great game. And what this means, what line tag means, is you might be in the type of dojo that doubles as a gymnasium, right? A basketball court, a volleyball court, badminton court, all at once. And so they all have different colored lines. And it's really an effective way as a warm-up. But not only as a warm-up, just to break things up in the middle of training. That's the beauty of putting in little activities like this. You can use them in the middle of training to emphasize a point and have a little bit of fun, maybe break the ice if you need to, if the mood's dropped. But anyway, moving around on a particular line or colored line and playing tag, of course, in okuriashi, there we go, with proper footwork, yeah, is a great way to have a little bit of fun using the environment where you are, right? Some of you, some of us, in fact, a lot of us outside of Japan don't have dedicated dojo floors. So using the lines on the floor is a great way to go about that. I love that suggestion. Thank you very much. Right. Let's have a look. So I wanted to introduce to you guys my top 3 games out of the resource that I've shared with you. That's not to say they're not all great. They are. But these are some of the ones that I love in particular. So this is the resource here. The first one that I wanted to introduce to you was Duck, Duck, Strike. Now, I know I acknowledge that there is a better name for this particular one. But if you guys remember playing Duck, Duck, Goose as young people, I sure do. Essentially what we're doing here is we've got a circle of people. They are all ready to go, right? And then someone's moving around the circle, tapping them on the shoulder, duck, 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 duck. And when they say goose or strike or whatever it is, those 2 people start to engage in an ippon shobu. Okay, and they can do that ippon shobu inside the circle. Everybody else can start to act as shimpan, and everybody's involved, right? It's a fun, quick-fire way to get people having fun doing the ippon shobu. Everyone engaged with the shimpan role. And when you've got the winner, they either join the circle or they continue around, whatever you consider to be the winner, right? Or the reward. They can keep going with that game. But again, within that very activity, you can then emphasize, no, we're only doing nidan waza, or we're only using nuki waza, or whatever it is that you want to emphasize. Okay, but a really cool way to get everyone involved and not just doing the one-on-one, one-on-one, one-on-one. We can still achieve some really, really good results. A lot of fun. Everyone participating. The group dynamic factor is there because everybody's supporting, everybody's watching, pushing people along. Come on, you got this, keep going. It's a great one to get everybody involved. So that was my number one, duck, duck, goose, or duck, duck, strike, whatever you want to call it. Here's my second one, kendo red light, green light. This is a great one. And I really, the reason I picked this one is one of my faves is because it doesn't need borgu. Right, this is something that you can do just like line tag. It doesn't require any particular ability just yet. It's something that you can do with the old ones, with the young ones. Essentially what we're doing is on the green light, we're moving forward on okuriashi. Red light, we stop. And if somebody loses their balance, then they have to go back to the start. And you better know that they go back in okuriashi as quickly as they can, right? So there's ways that we can use a game like this to really emphasize stability and moving on call or on cue and keeping everything nice and tight and keeping our posture strong, all right? So another real easy modification to make that benefits everyone. And like I said, the reason I love that one in particular is because it doesn't require borgu. And it be used for everyone. All right, and my top three, my third one, rats and rabbits. Now this one, again, one of those things that you can do at the start of training, no problem, an icebreaker, a warm-up sort of a thing, or halfway through training if you need to sort of bring the energy back up. But essentially what we're doing with rats and rabbits is we've got two straight lines. One team is the rats, one team is the rabbits, and the sensei or you, the coach, calls out rats. And when you call out rats, everybody in the rats line makes a beeline for the safe zone, either the wall or over a line. And of course, the rabbits have to chase them. Okay, and you can do this in chudan, you can do it from tsubazeriai, and I know that tsubazeriai is not a thing, but you can start from this position and they have to do the hiki waza and the other person has to chase them. And you can add in anything. They can chase them by striking them. If they get them before they get to the safe zone, they win the point or whatever the case may be. I'm terrible at this game. I love playing it, but I'm terrible at it because I can never remember which team I'm in. But that is beside the point. It's a really great way to bring people into the session. It's fast paced. And again, you don't need borgu for it. You can just do it as a kuriashi, moving across to the safe zone, or you can do it with borgu. So that, everybody, my friends, is my best tips, I guess, my top advice for how I've used the research in my dojo environment to try and increase the enjoyment of people who are there, particularly, like we've been talking about, particularly for our young people. We always go out for drinks after Saturday night practice, and with some people from the club, we play D&D on Sundays. Nice. That's exactly right. We've got this social vibe. At the end of the day, I think this is a really important point. We're not professional, but I would argue that many of us aren't amateur either. We're hobbyists. We love what we do, but it's a grind, right? Kendo can be a real grind. And so what makes it really, really compelling for us to keep going back is the people. It's the drinks after practice on Saturday night, or going for a coffee on Saturday morning, if that's probably a more appropriate thing to do on Saturday morning trainings. If you've got young people, of course, we can alter that. It can be going for a social night to the bowling alley or something like that. It doesn't have to be all kendo all the time. Can be. You can do little parties at the dojo if that's the sort of thing that you can do. Kids love it. Adults love it as well. Definitely. Hi, Steve. Great to have you, man. Hi, Blake Sensei. I've seen a variation of your red light, green light as moving forward or backwards when you hear the whistle. Absolutely. And again, we can bring in whistles. We can do all sorts of modifications on these games. It doesn't need to be exactly as it's written. In fact, I think it says in the link below, if you have any games with modifications like this, let me know so I can put them into volume 2 for sure. Rats and Rabbits is a lot of fun, mate. And yes, I am well. Thank you, Steve, for joining us. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and chuck them in the comments for me, and chuck a little Q in front of it. Otherwise, that's the content that I have for you all today. Please make sure that you have a look at the links down below. I have a newsletter. If I can entice you to signing up so you can get some cutting edge coaching insights into your inbox every Saturday, I'm more than happy to have you along. That'd be great. They are a nice little reminder every Saturday morning just before you go off to training of the importance of our role, right, as coaches, and what we do and what we can achieve. So please go ahead and sign up for that if that sounds interesting. And as always, if you would like to know more and stay with me and help and support the channel, like this video, subscribe, particularly if you got value out of this stream and my other content, I'd be really grateful. Even for a share, if you could let your dojo mates know, hey man, this guy's all right, he's good looking and he's got some good stuff for us to learn from, that would be great as well. Other than that, it's been wonderful, people. Thank you very much. Sorry about the audio issue at the start. It was such a great intro too, I promise it was. And I will catch you at the next one. Always let me know what else I can do to serve you better, be it my delivery or the type of content that I'm covering. I'm all ears and I appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll catch you again next time. Bye-bye.